Star Wars collectors, welcome to another Bossk's Bounty video and welcome to episode 35 of our Bossk Bounty. So this is the weekly series that drops every Sunday where you guys get to ask me questions in the comment section below and I do my very best to answer them. And if you do have a question for next week's episode, make sure to leave it in the comment section below and hopefully I'll get round to that question. I'd also like to extend a big thank you to anybody that tuned into the live stream on Thursday night. Had loads of fun. We had Obi-Wan Kenobi as a guest on the stream, which was awesome. Finally managed to get both of us on the screen at the same time, chatting about Star Wars figures and everything like that, which is always decent. So thank you very much for tuning in to that. We have lots of questions to get through this week, and we also have this to open a little bit later. I'll be doing this maybe halfway through the video. This is going to be a really cool package sent to the PO box, so be sure to make sure you're still watching for that. Okay then, with all that being said, let's get on to the first question, and it's from A. Montoya, and he says, I want to get the Battle Droid, the Super Battle Droid and Magna Guard for the vintage collection, but they are very expensive nowadays. Do you know of any 3.75 alternatives, cheaper from other collections? Thank you for the great work. So I have a feeling about this one, or a theory. The Super Battle Droid in particular, I think since his appearance in the Mandalorian TV show, his value and stock has gone up slightly. So this is obviously the vintage collection one. He's actually pretty easy to get in other lines. I think there was one in the legacy collections that's very similar to this. I think this might even be a repaint of it. And I don't think you need to spend too much on one of those. Maybe even £15 or $15 in equivalents. The one that you've got to worry about is the Magna Guard. He hasn't really been released too many times. And when he has, he's had sort of like nasty robes. They're not the soft good robes. The vintage collection one has the soft good robes. And if I'm very honest, that is still a figure that I need carded as well. The Revenge of the Sith Magna Guard is definitely one that I still need in my collection. But yeah, in terms of the Super Battle Droid, this one you can definitely get in other lines. I don't think you really need to shell out for this one, unless of course you want it carded. But if you're talking about getting it loose, there's plenty of other options. Oriel says, hey Tim, how many figures do you miss to complete a full run of the vintage Kenner figures? Well, if I just bring you over to here, this is the cabinet that I've got at the back of my room, and these are all my vintage Star Wars figures that I have at the moment, and they are all pretty much mint. The one there, the Snowtrooper, he's actually from my boyhood collection. The rest of my boyhood collection is basically given to my son. They're all beaters, so I've just given them to my son. But these ones are all, I wouldn't say mint, but they're near mint. And I do have Warwick on the way, the missing Ewok that I needed. He is actually on the way. I've managed to finally snag him, which is awesome. I also, of course, do have my first 12 stand, and I need 4 figures on there. So I do have 8 of those. So if you add the 8 to the 40 or 50 or so I have here, then I'm going to need another maybe 30 or 40 figures. Now, a lot of those are the Return of the Jedi figures, which essentially are pretty easy for me to get. People like Rees and the Rebel Commando, figures like that are just not going to be too difficult for me to get, which is why I haven't bothered getting those. I sort of concentrated on getting decent examples of the more harder to get figures, such as Luke Besbin, Han Besbin. Those two are pretty decent condition. We've got the Cloud Pilot there with the intercom thing. My Fett is pretty decent. I've got loads of Bosks. He's just one of them there. But yeah, I've got some decent examples in there. Pretty happy with it. And yeah, so I'd say I would need, yeah, about 30 to 40 of the original figures. So basically I've got the Return of the Jedi figures, which are essentially pretty easy to get, most of those. And then the last 17 are, you know, they're going to be the real tough ones to get. All right then, so why don't we take this opportunity to quickly open this. This, I believe, is going to be from a guy called Daniel Chart. He contacted me on Facebook to let me know that he does have the dome for this R2 unit, which I asked on last week's episode if anyone wouldn't mind sending to me if they had a spare one, because obviously I do have the rest of the figure from opening various legacy collection figures, but I'm missing the dome. And I think the dome came with a Darth Vader figure that I really just didn't need, so essentially I never actually picked it up. But all right, so I've opened up the package now, cut the tape and everything. Let's see what's inside. So some bubble wrap. Let's quickly open this bubble wrap. A little baggie There we go. R7, Z0, dome and foot, which is great. The third leg as well. That's awesome. Thank you very much, Daniel. I do appreciate it, my friend. So obviously here's the dome here, and we're going to place it on the astromech droid. Just push that down like so. That's great. And obviously he has his third leg as well. Now, if anybody doesn't know Daniel Chart, he does actually have his own YouTube channel, and he makes pretty awesome dioramas. And I hope he doesn't mind, but I'm just going to play a little bit of his video, his latest video. I'm just going to play that for you now so you can see the awesome work he does. And this is going to be his trash compactor video, but be sure to check out his channel because he has got some other amazing dioramas on there as well. But thank you very much, Daniel. We're just going to play that video very quickly now.
What an incredible smell you discovered! Oh!
So there you go. I'm sure you'll agree that that is a pretty awesome diorama of the trash compactor there. I think he's got it nailed. It looks absolutely great. I wish I had something like that in one of my cabinets. And also wish I was just half as talented as that I could actually, you know, build something like that for myself. But anyway, there's the droid. Awesome. Thank you very much, Daniel. That is now going in my cabinet nice and complete. So thank you very much for that. All right then, so back onto the question. So Martin says, hi Tim, as always, loving the channel. Enjoy hearing your opinions. Thank you very much for that, Martin. What would be your favourite San Diego Comic-Con figure purchase, and have you paid well over the odds to obtain these exclusives? Now, living in the UK, we often have to pay a little bit more for the exclusives anyway, I find. But if I was going to pick a favourite, it would be the Death Star Revenge of the Jedi set. I don't actually own it. I would love to own it. I've seen so many other people have it in pictures and everything, and it looks absolutely awesome. Obviously, I do have some of the Revenge of the Jedi card backs, but I don't have the set itself, and I certainly don't have those two mini cards of the Mouse Droid and the Salacious Crumb. Extremely rare these days, but I'm not about to go and pay £450 each for those two mini cards. That's just way out of the realms of what I would pay for an action figure. But the most favourite one that I've actually ever purchased myself probably will have to be this one. It's the Luke Skywalker action figure set. I believe this was last year's exclusive, and I just love these 3-packs anyway. You know, these back in the day of the vintage era, these are so hard to get now, super, super rare. And I love the way that Hasbro have mimicked it into today's figures. This one kind of was a little bit disappointed that I had 3 Luke Skywalker figures, but all the same, I believe that these 3 Luke Skywalker figures are now the best 3 Luke Skywalker figures that we have in the modern line. Especially this one, the Luke Jedi Knight. I have one of these sets open as well. And this figure here is just a great, great figure. And of course, the Stormtrooper one is coming out later on, maybe even in August or September, I believe. And of course, the X-Wing one's a decent figure as well. So you've got 3 really good figures, but it's the foil chase that you get on the exclusive. It's all really shiny on the back. You've got a great image going on the back there. And I just love these exclusives. So this is probably my favourite, the one that I own. But of course, I would love that Death Star set. And on the subject of exclusives, I do have this 40th anniversary Bounty Hunter set that's recently come from Amazon. I think it was an Amazon exclusive. And I've got to say, I was slightly disappointed in this. I mean, obviously the figures are great because obviously you get the carded Forlom or Zuckas, whichever way round you want to do it, in this box. And here's the other one. But man, I was really disappointed that it came in this box. Why couldn't it have been like the very similar vintage collection version, which came out for Celebration 5, where it had this awesome Velcro opening little booklet type thing here, where you open it up and you've got both figures in there, and you can still get them out at the top if you wanted to. They're on silver foil chase cards as well. But I just think this one was, you know, the presentation of this one's so much better. But it's the new 40th anniversary one is in like a flimsy box. And yeah, I just think they just could have stepped it up, really. RX Gold says, I'm a little worried that they won't put in any effort into making the new HasLab. The Jabba's Palace set was done way better, and yet it costed less than the freezing chamber. Do you think they've given up on trying to make cool ships and sets? No, I don't think that. And I really think that the HasLab thing is completely separate to anything else that they put out in general circulation and general sales. The HasLab thing is definitely a thing that's a step up in quality. The barge is absolutely fantastic. The new Sentinel figure, I think that's how you call it, for the Marvel Legends line, that's already reached its target of 6,000, I think, and it's going to go way beyond that. And it you know, I'm not a Marvel fan particularly, and I certainly don't collect the figures, but that thing does look amazing, and it looks way better quality than anything else that comes out in the regular line. So I think we can separate the HasLab from the normal Hasbro vintage collection. And I think, if I'm honest, and I'm hoping that the freezing chambers is just going to be a one-off. And I know a lot of people are disappointed about it. I'm disappointed about it as well. And I'm just praying that it's going to be a one-off and things will get back to normal soon. Ed5 says, question, has there ever been an FX7 on card since the vintage line? I know they need to do a 2-1B as well. Cheers. So yes, there has. FX7 was released in the Power of the Jedi line, and that figure is actually a really, really good figure. He was also released in a vintage collection 3-pack, repainted ever so slightly. But essentially, you could just buy the Power of the Jedi one and you will have the most up-to-date FX7. And in my opinion, if they were ever going to release it on a vintage card, which they should because he's part of the original 96, then that figure is pretty much all they need to do. Just give him a repaint, give him a bit of weathering, stick him on the vintage card, and Bob's your uncle. There's that little gap filled. As for 2-1B, he's pretty much the same. I think he is in the Power of the Force. They also did release him in the Vintage Collection 3-pack as well. So again, he's another one that we do need on a single card. So this is an interesting one. It's from Fellow Figure Collectors, and he has a YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, he's got an awesome basement with lots and lots of carded figures all over the wall. I know he's a big fan of the Vintage Collection, and he says, question, do you think the Vintage Collection will ever come to an end? In 8 years, 77 to 85, we got 116 vintage figures. I think that's 96, but obviously from 3 movies. Nowadays, with all the movies, 2012 to 2014, we had 115 figures. 2018 to present, we've had 52 figures. 10 to 12 a year is pretty slow. Hasbro should really speed up production. So this is why I kind of was one of the people that started the campaign, or initially that's why I wanted to start my Back the TVC campaign, was because I felt that 12 figures a year wasn't enough. And I'm hoping, with all the rumours that are circulating from Yakface, it looks like there's at least 24 figures on the Walmart app with code names, which are going to be released from now until mid-21. And that does include the final wave, or the final 2 waves that we're getting of 8 figures at the end of this year. So at least another 16 figures to look forward to from now until mid-21. And that's just the ones we know about on Walmart's app. But will it ever end, the Vintage Collection? I think, of course, it will at some point. Everything comes to an end, doesn't it? But I would prefer that it didn't. I think if they're ever going to release 3.75-inch figures, this would be my preferred method on vintage cards. I think it's a great look to the card. I know some people think it might be getting a bit old and tired and they want a different way of doing it, but for me, that is how I grew up, collecting those figures exactly like they are, like this, on the pegs. And I think it's awesome the way they bring out new movies like the Attack of the Clones and Solo and Rogue One on this style of card. You know, that is essentially why I collect them. I think that's how it should be. Question from Universal Collector, who also does have a YouTube channel if you want to check that out. And he says, great as always, Tim. So thank you for that, Matt. Question, we know you love your clone troopers. Are there any clones you really want and have not been released yet? Cheers, Matt. So I think I get a Clone Wars or a clones question every week. I think someone commented on it saying that I get the same question about clones every week, but this one might be a little bit different. In terms of clones that haven't been released yet, there's a stack of them, isn't there? There's, you know, Jesse, and we're getting 5s, which is awesome. We need Bly in the Vintage Collection, so there's just a couple right there for you, Matt. And a very late question from The Worst. He says, with the recent release of the Probe Droid in the Black Series 6-inch line, I've been wondering what's the best version of the Probe Droid that's ever been released in the 3.75-inch line. So we haven't actually had too many Probe Droids over the years in 3.75. I think there's 3 that I recall. Obviously, you've got the vintage one that came with the turret playset, the Hoth playset in 1980. Obviously, I would love one of those in my collection. That was a fantastic set. I think they released one in the Power of the Force, which I didn't really like too much. I think it had a little firing thing on it, which I never like that kind of thing with figures. And I think one came out in 2017 with a Darth Vader figure in the Last Jedi packaging. I don't personally own that myself, but looking at the pictures of it, I think it's actually a pretty good model. I don't think it would look out of place in anyone's collection. So cheapest one that you could probably get your hands on today would be that one. And that one over the Power of the Force, I think I would choose if you weren't obviously going to go for the vintage 1980 one, which would be my #1 choice out of the 3. All right then, guys, that's it for this week's episode of Ask Bossk Bounty. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching as per usual. Hit the like button if you did enjoy this video, and of course subscribe if you're new to the channel, and we shall see you on the next one.